I'm going to get different kinds of perspectives on what is likely to happen in the Court for Arbitration of Sports. That's what everyone's tracking at this moment. With me in the studio, my colleague Nikhil Naz. He's just come back after spending a month in Paris tracking the Olympics for us, so understands every single nuance of what's at play here. Also with us is Gopal Jain, senior advocate in the Supreme Court. Saurabh Mishra is an advocate in the Supreme Court as well. And Ashwin Nachappa joins us, well-known former Indian athlete. Nikhil Naz, I want to start with you. Give our viewers first a sense of how the proceedings in the Court of Arbitration of Sports really went. What were the arguments made by the lawyers on behalf of Vinesh? Was there a counter? Who presented the counter? And how did the arguments made before the judges really go?
Well, it's very interesting because if you look at the rule book, and this is what the UWW, the United World Wrestling Federation, is arguing over, that they followed the rules to the T. So there is no ambiguity there. They haven't twisted the rule in anybody's favor, and there is enough precedent in the previous Olympic Games where wrestlers have been disqualified even for, we were talking about 100 grams, even when they were weighing about 50 grams. So they are on a strong footing, or at least started off on a wrong footing, on a strong footing. Why is it that over the 3 hours of hearing has the verdict been pushed to about 3 days now? 3 extensions we've already had. That's not happened with the Court of Arbitration for Sports. Usually 24 hours is all they take to come in with the interim order. Of course, the detailed order takes time to come. Why is it? And what we're picking up, there are 3 basic areas that the Indian side in the argument are highlighting. One, of course, pertains to the more human angle. What they're arguing is that, listen, it's a fundamental right. She needed to, look after her recovery. Otherwise, she could have had certain issues with her body that could have been permanent. So if you make a wrestler fight for 3 bouts a day, she needs to load in those carbs, the salts, and so on and so forth. And you can't deny any human is fundamental right. That's one. The other angle they're taking, that, listen, you, for your other international competition, do allow a bit of leeway, and you should do that with the female wrestlers. You cannot have the same rules for male wrestlers and female wrestlers. On certain days of the month, you allow them those few extra grams, and you should look into it, and as a body you should. But I think the most interesting bit that they've picked up is in terms of the rules, and there is a lacuna there in the rules which they're trying to look at, is the fact that, as you know, wrestling is the only sport where the bronze medal is not decided by the 2 losing semi-finalists. You have to look at the chain, and the wrestler that reaches the final, the chain that he's beaten, they compete to be the 3rd best in the round. Now, what the Indian side argued, that in case of Vinesh's weight management or weight category, from her side, you have had the wrestlers that she beat compete for the bronze medal. So if in your books she's disqualified, then she's not a finalist. And then the finalist who replaces her, the Cuban wrestler in Lopez, all the wrestlers she beat should ideally be then competing for the bronze medal match. However, the bronze medal match, which is the next day and not the same day, those 3 bouts that happened, were contested by the wrestlers that Vinesh had beaten. So in your eyes, they're putting the onus back onto UWW, saying in your eyes she's still a finalist, and if she is a finalist, then give her the silver that she deserves. So that's the other argument that they are looking at. However, there are certain bylaws in the UWW manual which do specify that in case of a disqualification, they'll still consider the wrestlers that lost to the finalists. But they're arguing that if the idea is to give it to the 3rd best wrestler, then he or she should come from the side which has made the final. So there is a lacuna there is a loophole there that they are trying to highlight, and which is probably the reason that it's taken them, about 3 days to deliberate on the matter and then try and come to a conclusion. I'm not saying that it's done and dusted, it's in favor of Vinesh Phogat. I think still I would give the edge to the United World Wrestling as to, things still being in their favor. However, it's still opened up a gate, or opened up
really
an opportunity.
Like the final that never was. We don't know what will happen, and we just need to have our fingers crossed and wait. I want to go across to Gopal Jain. Mr. Jain, your sense, based on what you've heard, on how the Court of Arbitration of Sports is likely to rule in this matter?
Well, I think it'll be a call between reading the rules and applying it strictly, and looking at the context, the situation, the peculiar facts of the case, and coming up with a verdict which will do justice to the sport and in line with the spirit, because fair play always lies at the heart of sportsmanship and in sports. So if you look at the overall context and the facts which have just been stated, then obviously there's a case and room for doing justice to Vinesh. And 2, in any sport, especially when it's at the level of the Olympics, to just have a medal on a no contest and not give the second person who was in the fray, in the final, any medal at all, would look at some kind of sports injustice. So I hope they take a more holistic view.
But how does the Court
matter.
for Arbitration of Sports typically rule? Because all courts have precedents, they have past judgments which by and large tend to give sharp lawyers like yourself a sense of what's likely to happen.
I think that most of the past verdicts, I think, broadly go on a strict interpretation and application of the rules. But I think there's always flexibility built in, because in law, the context and the facts make a difference, and facts are different in every case. So that's why you go for adjudication. Otherwise, anyone can read the rule and take a decision one way or the other. So adjudication always has this element of marrying the facts onto the applicable regime or the rules. So I hope this holistic perspective is taken. And also sometimes you apply the principle of proportionality. You look at the situation, say what would be a proportionately correct remedy or resolution, and perhaps that should be giving the silver medal to her.